Speaking of
Yeah, agreed.
Microsoft, they released that they have 42 exclusives on the way. 42. Now, Microsoft has boasted large exclusive numbers before. I don't have any idea how many of these games might be timed exclusives.
Right.
So, they're not, to me, if a timed exclusive is not really exclusive to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming to other platforms. But we have an image here, and I'll be sure to pop it in the box right here. I'll just put that image up there while we're talking about this.
And this was released by Xbox, so...
Right, this was released by Xbox. And they got games on here. Some games I haven't even heard of.
Right.
XO1.
I think that's where people, because everybody talks so much about, and even you do. You talk about how PlayStation has amazing exclusives and Nintendo has amazing exclusives, which they do.
That's a fact.
But I think this is where we're splitting hairs, because 42, this list, and actually there are quite a few games on this list that I'm like, these are pretty legit exclusives. Are we splitting hairs? Because do all these games not count?
Of course they do. Of course they do. Look, Hellblade 1, the original Hellblade, came out on PlayStation before Xbox. Mm-hmm. Now Microsoft owns the studio, so we know for a fact Hellblade: Senua's Saga is coming to Xbox. But could that still potentially be a multi-platform game? Microsoft has been kind of spreading their games out. Xbox console is no longer going to be the only place you can play Halo, because the PC is going to have it. Your mobile phones are going to have it, because you have if you have xCloud with Game Pass Ultimate. So for me, we're not necessarily splitting hairs. Look at this list here. How many of these games do you think are going to be Game of the Year contenders? Because I can tell you, Sony consistently puts out Game of the Year contenders, games that are so good that they can win Game of the Year. When was the last time Microsoft had a game that was even up for contention? And you can't count the Outer Worlds, because they were releasing the Outer Worlds before Microsoft even bought that company, before they bought Obsidian.
So are we talking about then if great exclusives are going to be counted, they have to be AAA titles?
Not necessarily. I think Microsoft has a history of saying, we've got, we just showed off 25 great exclusives at this event, and then like half of them were timed exclusives, and then the other half were indies that a lot, I love indie games, but let's be honest, they don't market as well. They're not going to be your killer apps to purchase an Xbox. Right.
I personally love indie games. Me. You game share with me.
I love indie games.
A lot of the games I buy are indie games.
Well, and I've been playing Cook Serve Delicious. I don't think that's a big studio. That game cost me $20. I paid for it twice.
So being a contender for Game of the Year is or the potential to be a contender for Game of the Year is a requirement then, I guess?
I would say, sure. If you want people to buy, you need a killer app. Halo CE, Combat Evolved, was a killer app. That game pushed consoles. Without that game, I don't think Microsoft owns Xbox. I don't think Xbox is even in the picture.
Yeah.
I think Microsoft sells it off to someone else, or they just shut it down, because if they're not making money on that, of course, you have Fable on here as well. These games, I don't think they need a Game of the Year contender. But if we want to compare, when you talk about Sony games, they have quality exclusives. I'm just saying Microsoft needs quality exclusives. In order to be a contender for Game of the Year, you need quality. It doesn't. I don't care if you have 100 exclusives. If more than half of them are going to suck, if people aren't going to play them, people want to see quality. We want to see consistent quality in our games. When Naughty Dog releases a game, I have faith that game should be good.
Is going to be, should be amazing.
That it should be amazing.
Because they've proven it with Uncharted, and then The Last of Us is crazy. Insomniac,
consistent.
Spider-Man, and Ratchet and Clank. So
and Sunset Overdrive. People always forget it. They did Sunset Overdrive, and I don't care what anybody says. That game may not have been as popular because it was only on Xbox. That game was awesome.
Right.
Fight me.
So okay, but I get it. I get what you're saying. I just find that a lot of people talk a lot of smack about how great exclusives are on PlayStation and how great exclusives are on Nintendo. But I'm looking at this list here, and of the ones that of the franchises or of the ones that we know about decently, Fable. I mean, that's huge. Halo Infinite, huge.
Could be.
Hellblade.
State of Decay's become huge.
Huge. State of Decay, huge, right. Starfield is looking to be some sort of massive thing that the people are really excited about.
And that one could be exclusive.
Right. Medium. Medium is getting a lot of coverage right now.
It is. We'll actually be talking about that later in our news segment too.
Elder Scrolls 6.
Yes.
Hello Neighbor 2. Which,
by the way, I didn't even know was a thing.
Right.
I didn't know Hello Neighbor 2 was a thing until I saw this image. So I'm looking at some of these.
Those are some.
This is a list that they put out that they said exclusives. I'm thinking this has to be exclusive to the Xbox ecosystem. This isn't some console war kind of crap where people are like, oh, they're not exclusive because they're on PC. No, they are keeping the games to be exclusive. They're keeping games away from other consoles, right? So I'm looking and seeing Elder Scrolls 6 and Starfield on here, and I'm thinking, are these games going to be Xbox exclusives? Because if so, those are some killer apps right there.
Yeah, those are killer apps.
Those would be killer apps.
So look at that. I'm noticing, I was just looking at this image a little bit closer, and I noticed up at the top right, it shows XS. Okay, obviously standing for the Series X and the Series S.
Right.
But at the very bottom left, it also says Xbox Series X/S. Now,
not Xbox One, not PC.
That's pretty clear. It says Xbox exclusive and first party games. Now, I'm also seeing that this says this image was made by Xbox News, so maybe we're reading too much into it.
Could be.
Because I'm thinking maybe this isn't a direct from Xbox. So we'll see. But this bodes well for exclusives, for the future exclusives and first party games. This is the thing. This is something that we've all talked about, is first party. They need first party developers that are developing amazing games. And if they own all these guys, that the future looks bright.
Yeah, I'm telling you, people no longer have the argument. Like, you see these console wars and they're so petty and ridiculous, but there's no longer that argument of, oh, Microsoft doesn't have any exclusives. Microsoft now currently owns more first party studios than Sony does.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so they're gonna have exclusives.
So tell me they're not invested in making games.
They are invested in making games. Yeah. Prove to me that they're not, because their messaging for this cycle is so much better than their messaging was for the last cycle. You know, Xbox One is going to be your multimedia machine. You can have it everywhere and watch your football and Netflix. And,
I remember.
It's like, what about the games? Because that's what people purchase these for, is to play games. You know, people don't care. Who cares about Netflix? I can get Netflix on anything, you know?
Right.
So their messaging has been better. And this is...